Hello everyone, welcome back to the Bridgewell Group YouTube channel. And for those of you that are new here, my name is Mariko Berg and I'm a residential realtor in the Greater Vancouver area with my team, the Bridgewell Real Estate Group. And in today's video, I am going to be talking about the home buying process. And so just keep in mind that this is going to be specific to my market, which is the Greater Vancouver area. So if you are located outside of that area, make sure that you talk to a local realtor just to understand any nuanced differences between my market and your market. But this video is going to be going through everything that you need to know on a quick Cliff Notes version. So we're going to be starting with the pre-approval process, choosing a realtor, home searching, the offer prep, the offer itself, kind of that transaction management of the offer process all the way up until completion. So without further ado, why don't we just get into it? So starting off the home buying process, you definitely want to get a really good understanding of what your budget is. And so starting off with the pre-approval is always going to be my number one recommendation because I think it really sets the tone for everything else that comes after that. So when you're dealing with a pre-approval, you're going to be wanting to speak to your bank or a mortgage broker. One way or the other, you essentially want to get an idea for what the maximum amount that you can qualify for is. Once you have that piece of information, you can look at like, okay, is what I can qualify for different than what my actual budget is? What does that mean in terms of a monthly mortgage payment? How is that going to compromise my lifestyle versus the type of home that I'm able to buy? So this is why the pre-approval is really that foundation. And so essentially you're going to be starting that process with, say, the mortgage broker, can be submitting income documents, maybe going through a credit score, all of those things so that they can really start building your file so that when you are at the point where you get to writing an offer, you're already prepared and good to go. So the next step is going to be to choose your realtor representation. So these two steps here, essentially you want to have them done first, whether you have your realtor chosen before your pre-approval or you have it done in the opposite manner. Really the point here is just that you want to have step 1 and 2 done before you start that home searching process and really start to get serious in terms of looking and writing an offer. Why is this? Number one is because you're going to want your own representation, because that means that you have a realtor working within your sole best interest that has a duty to avoid conflict of interest and has a fiduciary duty to you. In general, the market is also going to expect you to have a realtor. In most situations, when there's a listing agent, they're going to tell you that you need to get your own representation. In my market, the listing agent generally cannot help you purchase the property because their best interests lie with the seller and they represent the seller. So therefore you have to get your own representation or choose to be unrepresented. I have a whole other video on that on like what does the buyer's agent do? What does it mean to be represented? Why you should hire a buyer's agent? So definitely make sure to check that out if you are looking for more information on that. But essentially at this step, you really want to choose your realtor so that you have someone that's able to help you with the home search process, match you with properties, help you with offer preparations, market evaluations, make sure you're not overpaying, and essentially guide you through this whole process. So next is going to be the home search process. So maybe you've casually looked at open houses here or there, or just gone through an exploratory phase prior to finalizing that pre-approval and hiring your realtor. But now this is when things start to get really serious and you have someone actively working with you to provide the guidance that you need to get to the next step, which is essentially writing an offer. So when you're dealing with the home search process, you want to get an understanding from your realtor about how you're searching for properties, how involved they are they sending you properties, what expectations are around them attending showings or open houses, just generally what that looks like. At this point in time, you're really going to want to narrow down those needs versus wants categories to figure out exactly what it is you're looking for. And again, maybe just like refine what options are available to you, right? So are you looking at the same price point for a condo, say in Vancouver versus a townhouse in Langley? Like what does that actually look like, apples to apples? And then kind of deciding, okay, from there, this is the clear direction that I want to go. I'm going to focus on this. And then when the right place comes up, I'm ready to write an offer. So once you found that perfect property come around, or maybe you're interested in two and you're wanting to get a better understanding of where those prices fall at face value, that's really when we move to this next step here. So offer preparation and a market evaluation for the property or properties that you are interested in. And so the big thing here is just that there's a lot of different ways that a seller can list a property. They can list it at market value, above market value, below market value. So you really want to take that listing price with a grain of salt. And this is really where your realtor is going to come in handy, because their job is to help you determine what market value is and what that range is, so that you essentially don't overpay. And so that is this process right here, whether that be narrowed down to 1 or 2 or maybe 3 properties, so you can decide like, okay, yeah, based on this market evaluation for this property, this is the one that I want to move forward with. And when the realtor is dealing with that offer preparation as well, they're going to be explaining the offer to you, pricing strategy based on how many offers are on the table or maybe lack thereof, what the dates are, what the subjects are, and really walking you through the offer itself and preparing it so that you are good to go to actually write and submit that offer. And so when you are dealing with the offer itself, that is going to be the negotiation process that the realtor is also going to help with, in terms of prepping the expiry time, dealing with all of the communication between the seller's agent and obviously you, and hopefully getting to the point where we move into an accepted offer. So getting up to that accepted offer means that you have already negotiated the price, the dates, and the subject. So this is really that transaction management portion of the home buying process. And so we are now in what is likely your subject removal process, which is essentially your time to do your due diligence and really decide if you are going to be moving forward with this offer. So think subject to financing, subject to title search, subject to strata documents, inspection, those kind of things are what you want to make sure that you're good with during this period of time. If for some reason you decide, no, during this subject removal period, I'm not comfortable with something, maybe you can't get financing for some reason, even though you did the pre-approval, or you're not comfortable with something in the inspection, this would be your time that you could potentially back out of the property, no harm, no foul. So long story short, you have this subject removal period to decide whether you're officially moving forward with the offer or whether you are backing out from that offer. So let's say that you've gone through the subject removal process and you're happy with everything. You're like, yep, I've got financing, I'm happy with the documents, I'm happy with the inspection, I want to move forward and commit to this property. So what happens here? You essentially remove your subjects, and generally, depending on the way that your contract is worded, this is when you are going to hand in the deposit and the property is going to be considered sold. So this is really a defining moment in this process. Just keep in mind that there are differences between resale and pre-sale, and again, you really want to look at your contract to figure out exactly how this deposit is dealt with. But generally, if we have a subject removal process, we are going to be handing in this deposit after the subject removal process, and this is going to be what marks the property firm or sold. This deposit is also going to long-term form a part of your final down payment, which comes later. So it's really that like initial good faith money to show the seller that like, I'm committed to this property, it's sold, and now we're just waiting until completion. So now that you have handed in your deposit and committed to the property, we are basically moving forward into that completion and possession process. So when you got the accepted offer, as I said, you would have negotiated dates, the completion date being the money day or the day that title transfers, and the possession day being the day that you get your keys. So the next step here is really that completion prep. And so this is, finalizing all the details of your mortgage, making sure the mortgage commitment is sent to your lawyer, choosing your lawyer and notary to help with the completion, because they're the main ones that are going to be dealing with that, preparing the statement of adjustments, telling you how much money you need to bring to make sure that everything closes properly. Obviously, you starting to liquidate your down payment funds, because the down payment plus any closing costs is what is going to be due on or slightly before that completion date given to the lawyer. So this is really a very important step where you're starting to prepare for completion. Now the timeline for this is going to be completely dependent on what you agreed to with the seller. So I've seen, as short as maybe about 2 weeks from when you remove subjects and hand in the deposit, to when completion occurs. I see on average, generally in this 2 to 3 month range, and I've seen much longer than that as well. So you really want to pay attention to what that timeline is, and then figure out actively with your realtor, your mortgage broker, and your legal representative on exactly what you need to do to make sure that that completion day goes very smoothly. And so last but not least, we have the completion and the possession day. So these are usually a few days in between each other. They could be back to back, but it's not uncommon in my market to see a couple days in between. And so again, the completion day is that money day, that title transfer day, and the possession day is pretty straightforward. That's the day you get your keys. So generally you are meeting with your legal representative, I would say like 1 to 3 business days prior to completion, giving those final funds to close, which is going to be, for example, the down payment plus your closing costs, signing off on the statement of adjustments, making sure that everything is good paperwork-wise, so that the actual completion day itself runs very smoothly. And the completion day, assuming you're not signing with the lawyer on that exact day, is really a day that you're just getting a piece of paper that is exciting in the sense that it says that you're a homeowner, but it's a piece of paper, right? And so the most exciting day is going to be the one that follows. That's the possession day. That's the day you get your keys. In my market, it is dealt with through the realtors, not the lawyers. So your realtor will probably meet you there, do a walkthrough of the property, make sure that everything is in substantially the same condition as when viewed, typically during the subject removal process, and celebrate, of course. So that's really the process from start to finish, from the pre-approval all the way through the transaction management and up until you get your keys. Thank you so much for watching this video on the home buying process, and I hope that it was helpful. If you are looking for further breakdowns and more details of the process, definitely make sure to check out the rest of my YouTube channel. I have a lot more videos on things like the deposit, the subject removal specifically, offers, dates, all of those things. So check that out, like, subscribe if you haven't already, and hopefully we'll see you around on the channel more. If you are a buyer that is looking to get into the market and is in the Greater Vancouver or Fraser Valley area, definitely feel free to reach out to myself and my team. Again, Bridgewell Real Estate Group, we are residential realtors in the Greater Vancouver and Fraser Valley markets. We help a lot of different buyers, and we'd be more than happy to help you, so definitely feel free to reach out. And I hope that you have a good rest of your day. Thanks so much, guys.